From the Nasdaq market site in Times Square, I'm Brad Smith, and you're watching Nasdaq Reads, where we feature books and written innovation in novels, and a lot of the books that are published by our partners here that feature innovation, startup themes that any business can leverage. So, joining us today, we have Maciej Kranz, who is the author of Building the Internet of Things, Implement New Business Models, Disrupt competitors, I'm going to get this right one day, and transform your industry. Perhaps it's just Thanksgiving that I'm looking so much forward to.
It feels like that. Great to be here.
It feels like it. Great to have you here at Nasdaq today. And you're also the VP of Strategic Innovation at Cisco as well.
Correct.
How at Cisco do you define IoT?
You know, in a nutshell, Internet of Things is about everything getting connected to everything, right? So devices, machines, things, robots, cameras, everything getting connected to each other, to the network, sometimes to the Internet as well. Absolutely.
Now, in your novel, you talk a lot about the misconceptions of IoT as well. What are some of those biggest misconceptions out there?
Probably the biggest one, and my pet peeve, is that we keep talking about consumer side of IoT, especially connected home, where actually the action today is on the business side. Yeah. So let me give you an example of probably a great implementation of IoT on the business side. Right. So Harley-Davidson, we all know the brand. Before they implemented Internet of Things, it used to take them 18 months from the time they took an order for a custom bike to when they actually delivered the product. Wow. Then they implemented Internet of Things, connected all of their operations, optimized them, and they reduced this time, are you ready, from 18 months to 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
That's the IoT in action.
Wow. So streamlining processes and making a lot of those, extensive processes that we've seen on the manufacturing side a lot less tighter window.
Correct. Time. Manufacturing, logistics, implementations, exactly.
So what should investors then know about some of the industries that are using IoT correctly, and which other ones are going to grow the quickest from your insights?
Sure. We see IoT being deployed fairly broadly, I would say, in the industrial space, so manufacturing, transportation, oil and gas, logistics. But we're also starting to see implementations in smart cities, for example, and some early deployments in retail, in healthcare, even in agriculture. So fairly broad-based.
Absolutely. Now, why are only some businesses investing in IoT to this point? I mean, there's so much discussion around it. So why not the uptick that we're expecting?
I would say it's mostly confusion. Yeah. From the industry perspective, we've been blasting a lot of messages around technology, around billions of devices getting connected, about trillions of revenues coming up in the future. But what these frontline managers are really looking for is how can I implement IoT and how I can use it to improve and transform my businesses. Right. But the good news, I would say, is that the industry has sort of started dialing down from the glorious view of IoT future and really focusing now on developing solutions for these folks.
Absolutely. Now, along with IoT comes the cybersecurity side as well. So in terms of security measures that are being taken to effectively implement and roll out an IoT strategy from the business side, are you seeing that effectively carried out? And what are some of the gaps that we need to consider moving forward?
I think the industry has gone through a lot of a transformation from a security perspective, and especially some of the recent incidents, I think have sort of served as a wake-up call for the industry. Right. So what I see on the vendor side, definitely much more focus from major players on IoT security, but also I think that companies are starting to work together more on standards, on best practices, and on sort of the sharing of the common approach to security. So I think we're making progress.
Certainly. Now, here at Nasdaq, we're always considering the business side of things. A lot of the businesses that we work with, Cisco included, they're all looking into different IoT strategies. And you at Cisco, you've already been driving this forward. So how and why are B2B innovations driving the transition to IoT today?
I think it's mostly because it's sort of a match made in heaven. If you think, for example, manufacturing, it's fair to say that in the manufacturing segment, they have not taken full advantage of some of the first wave of internet technologies. But when you think about now with IoT, some of the use cases like connected operations, remote operations, predictive maintenance, they actually are addressing what in this case, manufacturing companies really care about, which is quality, cost, performance, top and bottom line.
Right. So in terms of the consumers that are the end users of all of this, and you know, they're eventually the ones that are impacted, what's the first part of IoT technology that they'll start to see impacting them? And what would you say are some of the advances that are perhaps a long way off?
Good question, and maybe I can use an example of Cyber Monday because it's coming up,
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
And I think all of us will experience it. So there were basically three things that the consumers would see. First, they can actually order more product, they can get the products delivered faster, and they will arrive in the ideal condition. So what the retailers and the logistics companies doing is implementing IoT to connect all of these operations and streamline them. For example, in a warehouse, by using connected robots or RFID tags, they can pick the products faster and package them and ship them. By using preventive maintenance, they make sure that the delivery vehicles don't break down during the delivery. Or by using sensors like temperature sensors or humidity sensors. For example, if you are shipping food, you will make sure that they will arrive in the optimal conditions. So I think these are the tangible benefits that consumers can start seeing starting Monday.
Now we talk about the benefits, and we'll come back to Cyber Monday in a second because there's a lot of discussion around that, especially as we go into the weekend, obviously. But in terms of the other side, what are some of the pervasive problems that we've seen increasingly that could get addressed soon by IoT technology as well?
So some of the examples I would say are, for example, if you have a lot of machinery that is remote, right? What you typically do today is you would send somebody over, a physical person to the site to check on the machine, to diagnose it or troubleshoot it. Now we can actually do this remotely at the fraction of the cost and the time. So we can become much more efficient.
Got it. Now, as a marketer personally, one of the things that I'm interested in is, you know, as a marketer, because there's so much data that comes out of IoT and how all of the end users are connecting these the intertwined devices, really. Do you think marketers are doing a good enough job right now? You know, 3 to 6 months out from now, do you think we'll be able to harness some of that data, turn it into valuable insights that we can then use to make smarter marketing decisions as well?
It's a great question, and when I think about data and Internet of Things, they're actually two sides of the same coin, right? The main purpose of IoT devices is actually to generate data, and then we can take AI systems and analytics to actually analyze this data. So absolutely right. We are, for example, seeing product managers starting to use Internet of Things by actually seeing how the users are using the devices or the products they produce. Early diagnostics, see what environments they are using. You know, I'm talking to a lot of product managers and marketing folks that actually they're learning completely new use cases that their products are being used at because now they have a real-time access and real-time visibility. Right.
Now, even today here at the markets, we're looking at an environment where, you know, across the board, we're seeing all-time highs for some of the major indexes. What's a scenario in which we could use some of this technology to anticipate perhaps some of the market movements later on down the line? How can we access this to create better insights for traders, for institutions that may leverage this data?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I would say it's been a journey, and I think IoT is sort of adding to that journey, right? And you already have a lot of analytics tools that you've been using to predict the market conditions and so forth. What IoT is adding to it is a real-time capability because you now have sensors, because you now have all the data being generated by these devices. Right. So I would say it's an additive capability.
Absolutely. Maciej, great to have you here today on Facebook Live here from the Nasdaq, and
thanks for having me.
Certainly hope you have a great Thanksgiving too. We know we're looking forward to that.
And we can all order more products with IoT now through cybersecurity.
Cyber Monday, we're looking forward to it. So great to have you back here, and we'll certainly have you back in the future to discuss and see what comes from Cyber Monday and if there's any direct IoT correlations that we can draw back to.
Perfect. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brett.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching live on Facebook. Stay tuned for more coming from the Nasdaq market site throughout the rest of the day.